everyone, and welcome to one of the most tactical chess games that actually came as a suggestion from an excellent subscriber. It's a game played in the 1974 USSR Championship by Rafael Vaganian and Viktor Kupreichik, and I'm pretty sure that you're definitely going to like this video because the game played by Vaganian is just something I would really like everyone to see. So without further ado, let's just dive straight into the game. Vaganian has the white pieces and he opens the game with the move d4. After d4, black went knight to f6. So he says, okay, I'm in for a Nimzo Indian or some Queen's Indian. But after knight f6, white just goes bishop to g5. And this is actually a sideline of the queen's pawn. It's not really played nowadays, but this actually offers a lot of exciting games, which is why Vasily Ivanchuk often employs this against world champions like Magnus Carlsen and Vladimir Kramnik. So after bishop to g5, the bishop is attacking the knight, but black just goes c5. So he strikes in the center and he wants to get rid of this beautiful central pawn. White says nope. He goes d5. Now the pawn is defended very nicely by the queen, but now queen to b6. So black tries to get rid of this b2 pawn as white had already developed the bishop to g5, and after this queen b6 move, knight to c3 was played. So black sacrifices the b2 pawn for some rapid development. Black accepts. He just goes queen takes b2, and after queen takes b2, remember whenever you sacrifice a pawn, it must always be for good reason. You shouldn't just sacrifice your pawns for no reason at all. So white just brings back the bishop with the bishop to d2. And he says, okay, my bishop went to g5, back to d2, but now your queen is extremely awkward on b2. Black just goes queen back to b6. He says, okay, I want an extra pawn and show me what you have got. Rafael Vaganian says, okay, and he goes e4. And he prepares e5 in this position to attack this f6 knight. d6, stopping e5 because if you go e5, black just takes the pawn with d takes e5. So after d6, white went f4. Once again, he is preparing e5, but now g6. Black prepares bishop to g7. e5, white says, okay, it doesn't really matter to me. I'm just going to take away the knight. D takes e5, f takes e5, and you can see that these two pawns are extremely powerful. Black doesn't have anything to show for here. After d takes e5, black does go knight of d7. Here he does attack the pawn, but after this knight to f3 move, the spectators were extremely excited. They were in fact shouting because they knew that this position had a lot of potential to reach aggressive heights. So what is the idea of knight to f3? Rafael Vaganian plays this innocuous looking move, but in reality, he's setting up a beautiful trap that even Mikhail Tal confessed that he couldn't see. After knight to f3, black just went bishop to g7. Here, he attacked the e5 pawn, but feel free to pause the video and try to find out the correct move. And if you found out the correct move, please feel free to feel good about yourself as it's certainly not an easy move to find. After bishop to g7, rook to b1. And this is an easy move to find, but it's not really an easy task to find the following continuation. After rook to b1, the queen is attacking the b6 queen. Because if you go queen c7, then white just goes knight to b5. And then what are you going to do? Queen d8. Now, white just plays e6 without a care in the world. After f takes c6, f takes c6 and knight f6, white just plays bishop to f4. And after queen takes d1, rook takes d1. Yes, I would say that black does have an extra pawn, but definitely white's development would compensate. White is also preparing knight c7 check, so after knight a6, white just goes knight g5. So this is an extremely complicated line, but after this bishop to g7 move and rook to b1, black goes queen to d8 instead. Now the queen is perfectly safe on d8. Or is it? After queen d8, white once again advances the pawn, and it seems crazy. The pawn was on d4 to d5, and then the e-pawn advanced to e4 to e5 and then to e6, and even though black has all of these pieces, none of them were able to stop the threat of the advancing pawns. So after e6, black took f takes c6, but this was the move continuation that you had to see. You shouldn't take the pawn because after knight f6, black just has an alright position to play. He's also preparing castling. But the move that you had to see is actually knight to g5. And after knight to g5, the pawn is always a weak spot. For example, you play e captures d5, then after knight to e6, now the knight is attacking the queen has to go to a5, knight takes d5, and the position is a complete mess. Queen takes a2, white will play knight takes g7, and after king f7 and bishop to c3, who could save this position? White just has a winning position now. Or even better, after king f7, white can actually just go c4. Because if you go king takes g7, then white gets bishop to c3 check-in. But it's all based on perception. You can just play whatever move you want, and you would definitely win this game. So sorry about that. After knight g5, it is certain that black cannot take the e5 pawn. So after knight g5, you really have to defend not the e6 pawn, but the e6 square. So after knight g5, knight f6 was played. And black says, now if you take, then I take, and then I castle, and my king is perfectly safe while yours is not so safe. But once again, Viktor Kupreichik says that I have calculated all these lines. I'm not afraid. After this knight to f6 move, he plays bishop to b5. He blasts in with a check. So after bishop to b5 check, black just went king to f8. You can go bishop d7 because after knight takes e6, now the bishop cannot take the knight as the bishop is still pinning the king. So king f8 was played, but after king f8, white goes d takes c6 and he is preparing knight f7. And after d takes c6, pause the video for a few minutes and try to come up with not the best move, but the move that would tempt your opponent to make a mistake. After d captures c6, black went a6, and a6 is far from the best move. The best move is actually bishop to h6, but this is certainly a difficult move to find. But after a6, what Viktor Kupreichik had in his mind is just something very exciting. Feel free to find out the correct move once again in this video, and if you find out the correct move, then I would say that your chess knowledge is beyond vast. It's definitely an incredibly hard move to find, especially over the board. After a6, the move that you had to see is not to bring the bishop back, it's for millennials. The move that you had to find is bishop to e3. And after bishop to e3, the spectators were literally screaming out now. They were so excited. What is the idea of bishop to e3? So white is offering a trade of queens. Can black accept it? Let's see. Black cannot just play a takes b5 as the queen would hang. White would take queen takes d8. But black can certainly go queen takes d1, but after rook takes d1, a captures b5. Now white gets rook to d8 check in, and after knight e8, white plays a nice castles, giving a check, so now the rook is also under attack. Bishop to f6, and after rook takes c8, the c5 pawn is under attack, knight to e4 is coming, and you're going to lose the rook very fast. For example, you try unpinning with king g7, you want to go knight to d6 to trade off rooks. Now, white has a beautiful checkmate with knight to f7. And after knight f7, now there are two variations that I would like you to see. One is bishop takes c3, but bishop takes c3 doesn't work because after bishop to h6 check, note that the knight is still defending the bishop, the rook is also taking away the f6 square, so the black king is forced to go back to g8 But after rook takes e8, it's a checkmate. Or after knight f7, you could try rook g8, but once again, bishop to h6 is just one of the most beautiful checkmates that I've ever seen, as the pawn is on e6, the knight is on f7, the bishop is on h6. But unfortunately, after this bishop to e3 move, black does not go queen takes d1. Black goes queen a5, and everyone based this queen a5 idea as an imaginary move. Black is just hoping he doesn't calculate his variations. Mikhail Tal himself said that in his book, Queen to a5 was actually a move that Viktor Kupreichik played by hoping rather than calculating. So Viktor knew that he was losing the game. He tries to do something. He's attacking the knight and he's also attacking the bishop. But after Queen a5, you wouldn't believe what move Rafael played. He knows that the knight is under attack, the bishop is under attack, but he just plays castles with a cool head. And even though two pieces are under attack, black cannot take any of them. Because if you take queen takes c3, you once again fall to the idea of queen d8 check. But what happens after you go a takes b5? Rook takes b5, attacking the queen, and once again the queen has to stay along this diagonal. Queen c7 would be played, but after queen c7, knight to d5, further attacking the knight, and after queen to d8, bishop takes c5. Who could defend such a position? But after this queen a5 move and castles, black does not take any of the pieces. He just goes 8-6 and he says, now 3 pieces are under attack. But after 8-6, once again white goes queen to d3. He once again sacrifices the knight, and even though all of the pieces are under attack, Viktor Kupreichik did not even dare to touch a single piece. Because if you go king g8, white takes queen takes g6. After queen d3, if you go h takes g5, then after queen takes g6, white is preparing queen f7, which would be a checkmate. So after king g8, queen f7 check, king h7, bishop to d3 check, king h6, queen to g6 is a beautiful checkmate. So after this queen d3 move, black says enough is enough, I'm gonna go king g8 and maybe I can artificially castle. Rafael says nope, he just goes queen takes g6, and after queen takes g6, it was white who was sacrificing his pieces, but now black starts to sacrifice his piece. He goes bishop takes c6 now, and after bishop takes e6, knight takes e6, white prepares queen takes g1, but rook to h7, and look at this position, guys. Usually the rook would sit on f8 or play rook f7, but the king from e8 to f8 to g8, and then the rook on h8 came to h7. So this is definitely not something that I would say Viktor Kupreichik was proud of. In fact, many spectators say that he was extremely angry with himself that he allowed such an immortal game. So after rook h7, white went rook takes f6. In the idea is if black goes e takes f6, then after this check, bishop to f8, white goes queen takes f8, and it's once again a checkmate. After rook takes f6, knight to d7 was played. You cannot take the rook, but after knight d7, rook to f7, while it is a winning move, black just plays bishop takes d1. And after Rafael Vaganian played bishop takes d7, Viktor says enough is enough. I don't really want to have such a torture. He just resigns his game. Why did he resign the game? Well, I don't think that I'm supposed to say that as black's position is a complete mess, but black actually has e takes f6 now, because now the rook is under cover of the e8 square. But now bishop captures h6. If you go rook captures h6, then after queen captures c7, it's a checkmate. Or you could try queen takes c3, but then after bishop takes g7, white is preparing bishop takes f6, and black is getting demolished here. So it was in this position after knight d7, Rafael played bishop takes d7, and it was in this position that Viktor Kupreichik resigned his game on move 22.
Thank you for watching the video till the end, friends. I will be visiting you with more chess videos on opening chess traps, puzzles, in-game strategies very soon. So subscribe to my channel so that you don't miss any of my future content. Thank you and have a great day, friends.